Hey, what's up, guys? How is it going with the progress? I am here and I hope you are doing well. Today, we are going to see the client server model from a different angle and take a close look at that. So, what is exactly a client and what do mean by a server? How does client server model work together, and is there is any alternative to that? Now, we will answer all these questions and more well. Now let's begin with a introduction. Okay. Uh, so the web is a service which is built on the top of the internet to allow computer to share and exchange data easily and reliably. And when we say data, it can be anything such as images, video, document, etc. in any form. And for sometimes the web is referred to as a client server model because there are always a computer that asks for data which are called clients, and there is a other computer who gives the data which is called as a server. So now I like to tell about the components of client server architecture model. So there are some components like one is client server network devices. Other components like scanner, printer, etc. can also be connected to a network architecture. So, what is a client? When we talk the word client, it means to talk of a person of, or an organization using a particular service. So, similar in the digital world, client is a computer which that is a host capable of receiving information or using a particular service from the service provider. That is a server. And here there are two types of client: thick client and thin client. So thick client is also known as fat, rich or heavy client, which doesn't consume any of the server's computer resources to execute applications. And in thin client, it depends heavily on some other computer, that is server, to fulfill its computational role. And it's a lean, zero and slim client. Now I will tell about what is a server. So server is a sender end of a service in client server architecture of a system. A server is one or more multi-user processor which share memory, providing computing, connectivity, and the database services and interface related to the business need. There, in here also there is a two types of server. One is interactive server and other one is concurrent server. Interactive server is a server, and it is in a simplest form of a server where server process only one client request at a one time, and in meanwhile another clients keep waiting. So in concurrent server, that it is completely opposite to the iterative server. Here, server process may take longer, and another clients cannot wait for so long. So here, this type of server runs multiple concurrent processes to serve many requests at a time. So now we all understand what is a client and what is a server. Now we will uh, put a put client and server together to build a client server model and how the client server model works. So client server architecture is a producer or consumer computing architecture where the server act as a producer and client act as a consumer. In client server how so now I will tell about how the client server architecture works. When client computer send a resources or a process request to the server over the network connection, which is then processed and delivered to the client. Server computer can manage several clients simultaneously, where one client can be connected to the servers at a time. So here is the image where we able to understand that clients request it sends request to the uh, server through network, and server responses all the queries asked by a client through network, and it receives to the end to the clients. So there are some types of client-server architecture. Uh, First one is two-tier architecture, and second one is three-tier architecture. So in two-tier architecture, in this type of architecture, the workflow is divided between the server and the client. And in three-tier architecture, in this type, there is another layer between the client and the server. The client does not directly communicate with the server, instead it interacts with an application server which further communicates with the database system, and then the query processing and transaction management take place. This intermediate layer act as a medium of exchange of partially processed data between server and client. By looking at this picture, we are able to understand how the three-tier architecture works. So, in this slide, we will learn the three-tier and three-tier architecture. So, there are some tiers in three-tier architecture. First one is presentation tier. This occupies the top level and display information related to the service available on the website. And with other tiers, and it communicate with the other tier by sending result to the browser and the other tiers in the network. And second one is application tier, also called the middle tier or logic tier. This tier is pulled from the presentation tier. It controls application functionality by performing detailed processing. And in data tier, it's a house or houses of database server where information is stored and can be retrieved. Here it's like it's an image where client is in a level one who send request. It goes to the level two, which is application server, and it further sends to the level three, which is a database server, and its queries, client's queries goes through a SQL language, and again after processing of data, it's again go to the application server, and application server sending replies to the client. We will understand about the two tier and three tier architecture, and we are able to know about the client, what is client and what is the server, and how the client server work together. And now we will talk about the advantages and disadvantages of client server architecture. So in this slide, we will talk about the advantages. It improves the data sharing, integration of services, shared resources among the different platforms, easy maintenance, and it's fully security architecture system. There are also minimum disadvantages here. Overloaded servers. Sometimes there is a lot of load on the server due to the server unable to process properly, and client face little problem or it took some delays. And if impact on centralized architecture, it's also impact on centralized architecture. Okay. Now we will talk about the alternative to the client server architecture, which is a peer-to-peer model. So in peer-to-peer model, there is a no client and there is no server. Both computer can be requested and response provider. Each one is able to send and receive data directly with one another. Okay, to better to understand how the peer models work or how what are the peer-to-peer models, we know the some of the examples by understanding how the peer-to-peer model works. Torrent and Skype. We all are the users of Torrent and Skype, which is a good example to peer and peer model. So these are the alternatives to the conventional server client architectures. So now we are going to end our presentations. To sum up, let's a client is a machine or a program that we use to make requests through the web, and the server is a program that listens for our requests and responds to them. And the client server model is a centralized web architecture that classify computers into two sections, the requester and the response provider. And finally, there is an alternative for the client server model, which is the peer-to-peer model. All computers are functionally equal. There is a no requester or no the response giver. And example we learned like torrent and how the Skype works. There are the good examples to peer-to-peer model. And now we all able to understand and we all clear to the what is our client server architecture and how it is work. So thank you.